Recording?
Yeah, we are.
Are we live? We got our description.
Yeah,
I need to get my notes.
You can get your notes if you want. We're waiting for people to file on.
Get your notes.
Welcome, everybody. I apologize for not doing it yesterday. We had a long day. We had a long day on Sunday. But it's good. We could have gotten it done, but there wouldn't be the enthusiasm that we'll bring to it tonight.
Enthusiasm?
Because this is probably one of the most important topics, I would argue.
Yeah.
It's grass genetics for people who weren't paying attention to my post on the story yesterday about postponing this whole deal. And we are late by about 30 minutes, but it happens. Isaac's reviewing his copious notes. But
whirls, swirls, and curls.
We will.
Sorry.
Yeah, we'll get this thing rolling. How many people we got on the chat?
10.
Plus
11.
Plus 1. So now we actually have 10.
13.
All right,
it's growing.
It's growing.
How much of your profit does your...
Just taking notes. Welcome everybody to episode 45 of Chewing the Cud. This is a weekly live stream where we sit down at the kitchen table and discuss things related and unrelated to regenerative agriculture. We usually start these things off with some brief introductions for those who are new to the stream, new to watching it on YouTube, new to listening to the podcast, however you're consuming this. And after those brief introductions about who we are and what we're doing here and why you're listening to us, then we'll go into our topic for the week. And this week's topic is grass genetics. What does that even mean? Why is it one of the most important topics we're going to cover? And how it can be a game changer for your livestock operation if you're looking to do a grass-based or regenerative-based grazing system, whether that's sheep or cattle or whatever. And then the fun part of this for us, it's all fun, but the fun part of this for us is then we break out into question, answer, ask us anything type format, and just start firing those away as soon as they come to mind. It doesn't have to be anything related to what we're talking about at all. Regenerative agriculture, anything. It can be anything in your mind, just throw it in there, and we'll get to as many of them as we possibly can. We'll just start at the top, start working our way down. And yeah, I think that about covers it.
Okay, I drew a cow head.
Nice.
So, I'm Isaac Tappenden, this is Ben Hawley, and this is Connor Helton. We're interns here at Green Pastures Farm under Greg Judy. Greg and Jan own the farm that we run around 370, I'll just say 400 head of South Pole cattle, roughly 160 St. Croix sired hair sheep, not including babies. And then we host grazing schools, we give farm walks, we do some consulting. We grow shiitake logs, we sell balun rollers, we train guard dogs, we do a lot here in the farm, and so the three of us are here to learn what we can from Greg and from just getting the experience under our belts. We've learned a lot. Connor's been here for 2 months. He got here beginning of April 1st, and so he's already, from when he got here to where he is now, he knows a lot more. A crazy amount more than what he knew coming in, so that's super cool. And then Ben and I also have learned a lot in the last. We've been here for a year and 2 months, and so we're going to be here for another year. Mm-hmm. Is the plan. So.
Yeah, spring of 2022, shipping out.
Yep.
Somewhere.
Leaving the oasis.
Somewhere. Who knows at this point?
Who knows? Still doing it though. Hopefully. Oh yeah. Definitely.
We got any updates about the week? Oh, also for people who are keeping score, the stream last week there was a technical difficulty and it disappeared. I thought the file saved. It exists on Instagram as the full format, but I didn't get any clips out of it. I didn't get any actual video out of it. The file was just gone. So I don't know. Happens. We'll try to get this one, but anyway, a little housekeeping. But we have anything that happened this past week that worth noting since the last one?
Up to 107 calves.
Yep.
As of today.
The calf count.
Yeah, the calf count. Yeah, in spring flush, growing a lot of grass.
We tested a bunch.
Tested bulls today.
Yep, the second round of those. What else? We had our big cattle. We had some cattle sales on the weekend. You were manning
That's
fort
what
for
it
the
is.
first time.
Yeah.
How did that go? So for people who aren't aware, we had a bunch of cattle sales. Greg made a video a long time ago about these 3/4 South Pole heifers and steers. And the first batch of those got sold this past weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And so that involved both Isaac and me and Greg leaving the farm to go and deal with that. Greg and I drove down to Arkansas to drop off some heifers, and Isaac was manning the fort over at the other producer and making sure that everything was lined up properly and people were paying deposits or finalizing payments and that kind of thing. But because of that, Connor and Jan were manning the fort for a whole day. So that was your first stint,
Yeah.
where
Doing
it was
it on my
you
own,
basically, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely different. Like, it's like, oh, okay, I have to make the decision as to where this goes, or, where to put this mineral, or if we need to move something or get something up. But luckily, everything was like smooth sailing, so there was absolutely no problems. They waited until you guys got back.
Yeah,
so.
and then they started. No, not really. It hasn't been too bad recently.
No.
But yeah, I just remember last year when Greg would give us the reins, so to speak, for even an afternoon or for a morning. It's like you're sitting there let's make sure we think of everything,
Can't forget it.
Because that's the thing. It's like a bunch of really small decisions and really small either mistakes or right calls can have a massive impact on stuff that happens, And so it's almost like you're afraid to screw something up, but then at the end of the day, it's like, how much can it get screwed up,
Yeah.
For the most part, everything is fixable. So it's kind of hard to make catastrophic mistakes. It's just something can be slightly easier if you had done it a certain way, and that I just remember being freaked out about the cattle leaving the farm. I just had no confidence they were going to be there when we got back.
That's how I felt when we were on Marshalls and we moved the bulls. I was like, because we've had problems with them lately.
Yeah.
But we put in the fence and we left. And I was like, when we came back the next day, I'm like, I hope they're there. I didn't leave a fence open or something, but
I left the gate open.
yeah.
The tree fell on the barbed wire.
Such a horrible feeling. Yeah. Anyway, are you reviewed enough? Do we need to stall a little bit more?
It's in my brain. Kinda.
So, all right. So how do we?
Stuff we already know.
Yeah, and we've covered some of these topics in previous live streams, but we're sort of going to package this all together finally and tie a ribbon on it, so to speak, because it's been something that people have been asking us a lot in questions and in comments and that kind of a deal. And it's a big topic, so we're going to do our best to make it digestible, and hopefully somebody's going to get something out of this that's going to make you think and make some better decisions moving forward. But let's just start with the fact that not all animals are created equal, right? And that's the case within the same breed. So you've got, and we're just going to talk about cattle for the sake of discussion. The same sort of rules apply to sheep, but we're not as familiar with it with sheep as we are with cattle, because the system really is not developed as much as it is with cattle as identifying grass genetics, but there's some things you can think about with the sheep as well.
And
but
some of it's the same as the cattle.
Some of it's the same as the cattle, but for the sake of discussion, we're just going to talk about cattle, and if people have questions about sheep, we'll get into that in a bit. But anyway, so as far as cattle goes, not all cattle are created equal, and that's a case across breeds, but then it's also the case within breeds. So you have certain breeds that are going to be better grass-based animals or better beef animals. Just they're more efficient on grass. It's what people have bred into that breed for generations. But then within that, each breed in and of itself, you have a spectrum of animals that will do a lot better in a grass-based system, and animals that will require a lot more work in a grass-based system to perform, or just won't even perform at all. Yeah, and so
fall apart.
So from a producer standpoint, if you're looking to build a herd or improve your herd, either you're looking to buy animals, or even if you're looking to cull, this whole talk is going to sort of apply to that sort of scenario. But you need to be looking at grass genetics, and so the big question is how do how do you identify the difference between an animal that's going to do really well on grass and an animal that is going to get incredibly thin and you're just going to have to end up selling to the sale barn or culling?
And really the thing is, in the cow-calf operation, when you're talking like cow-calf operation, your paycheck is a calf. And so if she's not able to breed back and give you a calf year after year on grass, that's cutting into your profit. So that's really what, in the cow-calf operation, that you're looking for. Then if you switch it over into the meat side of it, an animal that's, if you're looking to do grass-fed beef or, that kind of system, an animal that's bred and has the genetics to perform on grass is going to fatten a lot quicker. It's going to be a lot more pleasurable eating experience because it takes a lot less time and grass to get the finish on that animal. And so that's both sides of the beef industry, and there's like other benefits on other like sides of it too. But both sides of the cattle industry can be affected by the grass cattle industry, I should say.
That's really what we're concerned about. If as far as like commodity or conventional feed operations, that's not really what we're talking about.
And then there's also like a whole nother deal with like show cattle. Like that's a whole nother, and we're not recommending any of this for show cattle. We're not recommending any of this for grass-based genetics. What's going to perform?
An animal that will eat a blade of grass and get fat.
Exactly.
You want them to look at a blade of grass and get fat.
Just by looking at it.
Sort of. Kind of. So I think that's an overview. Let's just touch really briefly on breeds, because people ask this all the time. Breeds that work, or breeds that would
more
be
desirable,
or more desirable than others. And that's not saying that you can't find other breeds where you've got individuals in that breed that are going to do pretty well, and it's also not to say that every animal within these breeds is going to do well. But broad strokes,
breeds
starting points. Yeah.
So obviously, I think number one in the United States is the South Pole. That's like,
and we're probably biased there too, but
I don't know if we are.
It could be objective.
Like
it's not objective, but
So
it's
South
subjective.
Pole,
that's what this is all about. It's subjectivity. It's our opinion.
Exactly.
But anyway,
South Pole cattle. That's a breed that you really can't go wrong with. I would say,
you're going to be heading in a very good direction.
Yes.
Let's just say that if you start looking at South Pole.
I can't say you won't go wrong, because there's some South Pole out there that are not bred right.
Yeah.
As far as like their genetics.
Yeah.
But the majority of the breed, the South Pole is a good, very, very good option.
Yeah.
So South Pole, I would say, is number one.
If you're on small acreages, Dexters are super efficient, but the only problem is you're going to have an issue with selling animals to the sale barn if that's part of your model. If it's not, doesn't matter. It's a really efficient animal on grass, but if you sell them to the sale barn, they're just so small that you're going to take price stocks as a result.
It's the same thing with the Aberdeen Angus or the lowline Angus. They're very efficient on grass, but if you have to take them into the sale barn for whatever reason, people don't like them, and so you'll get a dock. You'll get
and there's exceptions to every rule. I can hear people screaming in the comments section. There's exceptions to every rule, but still, I mean, broad strokes here.
Yep. Red Angus. A lot of Red Angus cattle will work because one, they've got the right color for being out on grass, and two, there's a lot of good genetics, good mothering genetics and stuff in the Red Angus breed.
Yeah.
Another one is Galloway. Not necessarily the belted Galloway, but the normal Galloway. And
we've had this discussion before. But
the belted Galloway, and how you will also get a dock at the sale barn for having a belted Galloway. But Galloway will make really good. They can eat a lot less palatable forages, a lot less. Mm-hmm. They don't need as high a nutrition in order to do well. They're bred. I think they were bred over in Europe somewhere for like living in the mountains.
Yeah.
And what they've got is like a double layer coat. So like in the wintertime, they'll have like a coarse outer layer of their hair coat, and then like a real fine, almost like a duff inner hair coat. And so they do really well in cold, wet climates because they can keep their body temperature up, and they can maintain condition at a lot lower temperature.
Condition.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about body temperature.
Well, they can maintain, like, their feed requirements to keep their body warm do not, increase until like a lot lower temperature.
Because what happens with cattle in general is when they get too cold, they'll eat more in order to generate more bacterial fermentation activity in their gut, which generates heat so they can warm themselves up. And every cattle breed will get to a point where they'll start to eat more just to stay warm. Mm-hmm. And if you're a breed like Highland cattle,
or Highland's another good one.
Highland's another breed. Their tolerance as far as cold before they start to increase their feed consumption is a lot lower. Like they can withstand temperatures that South Pole would freeze to death. Mm-hmm. Anything else like?
British White's a good one. Those do really well. Murray Grey's a good cattle breed. They're an Australian breed, I believe.
Australian breed, I'm pretty sure.
But Greg has a couple Murray Grey cows. Well, one cow and a couple heifers.
And they're not full Murray Grey, but yeah.
But they're so pretty. I really like the look of a Murray Grey.
So that's just to give somebody some ideas.
There might be Corriente.
Yeah.
Corriente's a big one for arid climates. I think you could do like Hereford's not too bad, but it's just like, especially here in Missouri, if you take any kind of Hereford to the sale barn, you're just going to get absolutely docked.
Your lunch money will get stolen.
Stolen from you. So keep that in mind.
And the reason is just because there's a myth around the Hereford, or myth. There might be some truth to it as well. But
they used to have really good genetics, and then somehow they were bred, for certain traits, which then became undesirable, and so then they were considered a bad breed. And then
even though, like everything, there's good Herefords and there's not so good Herefords as far as, wasn't it like they were bony or
super
just
bony,
bad cutability or whatever?
Yeah, because they had so big of bones or something, they didn't have very good cutability. I believe.
But anyway, someone can check us on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's going to give some people some ideas about the breed situation. Okay, now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this conversation, which is within the breed. If you go to somebody's herd, what are you looking for? Say you're going to somebody's herd and you're going to buy, I don't know, five of their heifers or 10 of their heifers or something like that. You're going to buy some of their older cows. What are you looking for? Let's just talk like irrespective of sex. Like what are some things that you'd be looking for as far as things that are probably going to be doing better on grass. And something also to note before we even start this is that there's also another element of the fact that just by moving an animal from one environment to another, even if it's not that far away, if it's in the same state, there's always a risk of that animal based on your management or your particular microclimate or whatever, that there's going to be an adjustment period. And sometimes animals that look awesome and are doing really well in somebody's management, in somebody's environment, you take them over to where you are, despite the fact that you'll go through some of these checkpoints and be like, yep, like this, checking all the boxes here, it looks like a great animal. Bring it on your place and then they just fall apart. It's just the risk in the cattle business where
bringing animals
in
one place to another.
Yeah, and bringing animals onto your farm as opposed to breeding animals from your genetics, because that's the ultimate. But again,
in order to get there,
you got to start bringing them in. Exactly, and this is just stuff to think about because it'll get you a lot closer to an animal that's going to probably do well. Like you're going to get rid of you're going to sort of self-select out a lot of animals that might not end up performing. So, but still, it's worth saying that it's not like, I made sure of all these things and they still didn't do well. It can happen. So it can happen to the best of them.
I think, so let's just start. The first thing to really look at is your size.
Yes.
Size is a huge one in the with grass genetics, just because the bigger the animal, the more grass it takes to keep it going. So you think of it, Greg always makes the analogy, and he's preached this for years and years. So let's do a hypothetical scenario. Three 1,000 pound cows is the same amount of weight as two 1,500 pound cows. Three 1,000 is 3,000, two 1,500 is 3,000. Those three 1,000 pound cows will give you one calf each year. So you've got 3 calves at the end of the year. Yes, it's going to be a smaller calf. We'll get to that in a second. Your 2 cows are going to be eating the same amount of forage as these three 1,000 pound cows in order to maintain their body weight.
Roughly.
This is like hypothetical, but it's pretty much true. Maybe not like exactly, but it's it's pretty close.
Yeah.
And they're only going to give you 2 calves per year. So now, by just getting that size down, you've gained an additional calf per year. Now we talk about the calves. I hear people saying, yelling back.
Yeah.
Oh well, these 1,500-pound cows are going to throw a bigger calf for me, and it's going to grow out better. And yes, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to have a bigger calf. And if you're selling to the sale barn, those of you that know the sale barn know that as weights go up, from 400 to 500 is like a weight class. As the weight classes go up, the price per pound goes down. And so this smaller these 3 smaller calves that you bring into the sale barn are going to bring more because they're going to be smaller. They're going to be in the smaller weight class than the 2 1,500-pound cows calves.
And so, it's very counterintuitive. Like when you think about it, you're like, how is that even possible? But then you start to think about where is that animal going? Mm-hmm. Like once it goes through the sale barn, and it's going to most likely some sort of a feedlot where they're trying to just crank through animals in a systematic way. And if you get an animal that's really, really, really small, like Dexter small or whatever, it takes first they're never going to grow out, but it takes a really long time for them to mature out. And if you get an animal that's really, really, really big,
I think it's really quick. It's too quick.
Yeah.
They would finish too quick. They'd finish too quick.
So because they're so efficient. So, Sorry, but the animal, if the animal's too big, like if the calf is big or the feeder calf or the stocker or whatever is big, you're also going to take a price dock because all of a sudden the animal's done. Mm-hmm. Like there's no, it's going to gum up the system because you've got animals that basically show up and then they need to leave. There's a set amount of time that they want that animal to be in their lot. And so
the thing is, with the sale or the feedlots, they're making their money by how much corn they can put through a cow or feed, like not necessarily just corn. Because like their biggest cost is like when they bring that calf in, they've got to get all their vaccinations and all, make sure the calf's all caught up on all that. That's a big upfront cost for that calf. So if they have to buy in an older calf, put all this costs into it, and only feed grow 100 pounds of corn on that steer before they have to butcher it, there's not much margin there for them to make a profit. Whereas if they get a younger calf in there, they're able to pay for those upfront costs, and they've got a lot longer time to grow that calf out or that stocker out until they finish. So they make a lot more on those calves. That's why the price is a lot more.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why the smaller calves are going to bring more than the bigger calves at the sale barn.
And that's from a sale barn perspective. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have no interest in trying to sell stuff at the sale barn as part of their main business model. And there's massive advantages in that same scenario where you've got 3 calves versus 2, and you got an animal that's going to be more efficient on grass, as in it like per pound of meat that it's putting on, it needs a fraction of the amount of feed that the 1,500-pound animal does just to maintain the body condition. They're going to require a huge amount of feed, let alone gain weight. It's like how I can't gain weight.
Yeah.
I'm tall, leggy,
big old leggy animal,
and I can eat, and I stay the same weight because I don't have that big of an appetite. Mm-hmm. Like I have a normal appetite or whatever, and so I can't gain weight. But if somebody who's shorter and more stocky, if you eat, you're just gonna put weight on, and that's what you want. So it's the same thing.
In the grass.
I'm a horrible grass genetic animal. You guys are way more efficient than I am. And it's like Greg.
Maybe that's why you like peanut butter.
Yeah. It's a high calorie feed.
As much of it, just like it's like corn for cattle.
Yeah, exactly. Peanut butter fed, corn fed.
Pump the peanut butter,
dude. Yeah. Anyway, man, it was a tangent. Size matters.
Is a big one. That's
size
probably
matters
the biggest
a huge amount.
Plus, not only for like performance, but you think about in a grass-based system, what happens in the early spring? It's called, like we call it here, it's March mud month. There's more rain than the land can handle. In this part of the country, there's more rain than the land can handle. The ground can't take it all up, so it's stuck there in like clay country too, especially. Yeah. The forages aren't growing right yet to take that up, and so what you're left with is a lot of mud. And the smaller framed cows, 1,000, maybe 1,200 pound cow is going to hold up a lot better on that muddy sod than a 1,500, 1,600, 2,100 pound bull. Like you're talking some serious holes put in you'll be able to track it by just walking through your pastures exactly where he or she was.
It's like driving a 4-wheeler versus like a tractor on your pasture.
Mm-hmm.
You can zip around with a 4-wheeler and flotation tires, 1,000-pound cow, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Big 2,000-pound commodity-sized Charolais is like driving a
big old
giant tractor on you're gonna sink all the way up to the axles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're basically gonna plow your field doing that, and that's why a lot of producers in the springtime will lock their animals up because
in a sacrifice lot.
There's no choice. Like otherwise, their whole farm would turn
I would do
mud.
the same thing.
Absolutely, but
I wouldn't want them.
That's the advantage of having the smaller framed animals, just lighter. They're just gonna be able to. They'll sink down like this far as opposed to like that far, and it makes a massive difference.
Great.
Greg's back. Anyway, so yeah, size. When we say size, mature weight for a cow is at most 1,200 pounds, preferably 1,000.
Like 900 to 1,100 pounds
is
that
perfect.
Sweet range, anywhere in there, and that as a mature cow, that's perfect.
Your bulls can like mature a little bit bigger if you wanted to, 12 to 14. But I mean, like short, squat, 1,200 pound, 1,100 pound bulls, perfect.
Mm-hmm. They can get the job done too.
Yep, for sure.
They can feed themselves a lot easier, so that way they can focus more on breeding. So.
Yep, there's an advantage there too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, size, check. Small animal. All right, I got a set of animals that look like they're about the right size. Now what do I look for?
A big one is your hair coat.
Yep.
If you've got a shiny hair coat, that's a sign of animal health. Like shiny means like that animal's getting everything she needs or he needs. Forage is good. He's able to, he's surviving or he's thriving in that environment
instead of surviving. Yeah.
And so that's a really big one is the slick or the not slick hide, but like even like with that hair, if it looks real shiny and like the sparkle of the sun on their back. Like the sparkle of a new car. That's what if you see that on the cow, that's a good thing.
And the like you said slick, and that's also important too. If you have animals that are supposed to be short, slick hides in the summertime, and they're not fully shed off, especially if they're older. With younger animals, you can give them a little bit of a break because when they're younger, they're not going to shed off as quickly during the spring.
Younger is in a year and a half and below.
Yeah, but if the animal is 2 years and up, and it's still hanging on to hair when it probably shouldn't be, that's a sign that it might not be performing as well as it could be. So if it's supposed to be slick, then it should be shiny and slick. It should look like you've armor-alled your animal or whatever. Someone's poured like vegetable oil down their back or something like that. That's what it should sort of look like.
The animal that sheds off the earliest is the healthiest in your herd.
Yep.
So whether that means that they've got slick hide or not, but the ones that shed their winter hair coat first, that means they're getting all that they need and they're able to just kick it.
Yep. Okay.
So your shiny hair coats probably I have it written down here that it's the priority. Then after that, now you look at shape because like the shiny hair coat it's an indicator of who's performing.
Overall organ function, everything's doing type. Well. Yep.
So then you get into the more nitpicky side, and that's body type.
So I got shiny small animals.
Shiny small animals.
Now what am I looking for?
Yeah. Now we're looking.
Yeah, I'll hold this. So this is what. A lot of these things are coming from a Steve Campbell.
Yeah. But a lot of it's like
but a lot of it is stuff that we knew beforehand.
But it's like he told easier ways to tell.
He sort of packaged it up so it's easier to tell. And a lot of this was done by Gerald Fry, and Steve Campbell worked with Gerald Fry for a number of years, and so he's sort of carrying the torch, so to speak, of Gerald's work now that he's passed away. But so what Steve Campbell calls this is the red Solo Cup cow, but we've got a silver Solo Cup.
Silver, it's shiny.
It's actually made of metal. This was here before we got here, but
shiny, like you want your cow.
Yeah, you want your cow to look like that. Maybe not metallic because that'd be a little freaky, but okay.
If your Murray Greys look like that, though, you're doing good.
So let's talk about it's true. Let's talk about
females.
Females first.
So this is a way you can identify, or you can
Yeah.
identify your males that you want and your females.
And the
just with
females
this
that you
cup.
want is using this cup. So just pay attention to the head and the tail.
The head is always going to be on Ben's side.
So in a female, this is a female, right? So her head's up here and her tail's back here, right?
She's
So
on level ground. She's looking like she's walking downward, as in like her slope is pointing down towards her head along her back.
like her tailbone should be higher than her head is. I mean, like not. It's like as in like it's not like, oh, she's
You want a big butt on your girls.
yeah, exactly. You want like large hips.
Yep.
And a lot of the size and girth should be back here, not in the front. They should be really slight in the front, sort of like a almost feminine looking, if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But you want it bigger in the front, bigger in the back, smaller in the front. Looks like it's sloping downhill, and underneath. I mean, as well. You want it sloping
Uphill underneath.
yeah, uphill underneath, like almost the inverse. So it looks exactly like this.
Mm-hmm.
If you see a female that looks like this, or even if it's flat across, that's
She has
that's
no
a problem. No gut,
No butt.
no butt, really big up front. Like she's not shaped like she should be. And the reason this happens is because the estrogen, a female that is producing enough estrogen, it'll shut off growth in the front end before the back end. So a properly balanced female is going to have smaller front end and a larger back end because easy calving, and that's where all the business happens in the back for the females.
Also with the females, so the hook and the pin bones. The hook bones. So if you guys are familiar with the death triangle, the hook bone is the bone right behind the death triangle there, like on the cow's side. So that's the hook bone, and the pin bones are the farthest bone of the hip back.
It's like right by the tail, kind of.
Yeah, it's like the bone, like, you know, right by their parts.
Yeah.
And so that you want that from the hook to the pin bones to be as steep of an angle as possible. The steeper the angle, that means the bigger the birth canal is. That means the easier calving. That's like when people do like whatever it's called. They measure the. Oh, what's the?
You're measuring?
No, there's a. Anyways, when people can like measure that to determine what like the heifer's
Yep.
calving ease. Whereas that's like a visual way to, if it's sloping, a lot steeper, that's a lot better animal just because of having less troubles calving. And also on that same note, their tail head, you want it to look like it's smashed in, look like someone like it backed up into a tree and smashed it up against its butt.
Where the tail's just flat in there. You don't want the tail
To look like
poking
it's
out.
curved up or
It's one of the most important things to look for at this point. Like, we're going to start to get into the nitty-gritty details of like little things that you can look at that are going to potentially determine something later on in the future. And the tailbone thing, if you remember anything, the tailbone thing is
another big one.
huge.
Raised tailbone is a growthier animal, so they're going to grow a lot faster, but that means they're going to need a lot more grass to grow. They're not gonna be, like the slower growing animals are gonna be more efficient on grass because a growthier animal. But when I say growthier, I mean like, more leg. Can put a lot of weight on.
They'll spend a lot of time trying to maintain their own condition and not trying to give you a calf or not trying to breed effectively. They're just going to be eating, just trying to keep weight, which is not what you want in a grass-based system. So that covers females.
Yep.
In males.
Oh, also, a taller animal has fewer sex hormones.
That's true.
So
For
every 100 or I think it was 100 pounds over 1,100 pounds, you lose like 2% fertility in your herd. So think about that. 1,500 pound cow. She's got like 6% less fertility or whatever.
Yeah.
8% less fertility.
But as you get larger,
than that 1,100 pound cow.
As you get larger,
So that's another benefit of having the smaller frame cattle.
Yeah. Is there anything with the udders that we need to talk about? You want clean udders. You don't want udders that are hairy. You want them to be buckskin.
Like no hair and teats that are pretty symmetrical. You want the teats to be about level with the bottom of the stomach. You don't want the teats to hang down below.
You don't want them
angled. You don't want them angled. You want them, nice, level, even teats. And 4 teats is great. If a cow has 6 teats, that is not a bad thing. That is actually a really good thing. So with the udder, the way it works, so you think about like the term like cream rises to the top. That's where it comes in is milk. If any of you know like get raw milk or drink raw milk
or unhomogenized milk or whatever.
You'll notice that when you go to get the milk out of the fridge, there's about 2 inches of cream there at the top of the milk. That's the same way in the udder. The cream or the butter fat or the good stuff of the milk is at that top layer. And so cows that have 4 udders or big udders, there's a lot of milk beneath that that cream. So a young calf is sucking, then the calf gets full before he or she gets to the cream. And so a cow that has a smaller udder and 6 teats
and smaller teats
is going to have a lot more butter fat or cream to milk, and so the calf is going to have a lot easier time to get to the cream, and it's going to grow out a lot better
nutrition,
because that's the good stuff.
Yeah, the good stuff. Yeah,
you're trying to raise a calf, not get milk.
Yeah, exactly. For milk production, it's the exact opposite. You want big teats because it's a lot easier to fit a milker on them.
The more milk a cow can hold, I mean,
the better off you're going to be.
There's obviously a point where
but
on
with
grass it's hard.
But then also the other thing is like if you got a cow with a massive udder on grass, it's just asking for scours in this kind of an operation.
And when a calf's born, a lot of times those cows that have massive udders, the calf as it is has not a hard time, but a newborn. It's a lot to get up after you've just been born and find the teat and get your first drink. And so if a mother has an udder that's sagging almost on the ground,
size of a Coke bottle,
for the calf's pushing up to try to get to the udder. And a lot of times, if it's a real low udder, they're not smart enough to go down low enough to get to that teat
angle.
And if they don't get to it in time, they get discouraged and then they lay down and then they won't get up and suck unless you make them.
And they don't have enough, and then they lose energy, and then next thing you know, you have a dead calf just because the udder wasn't shaped right.
Yep.
Okay. Bulls, for males, it's the exact opposite. You want them to look like they're walking uphill on level ground.
Think of like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
You want their front end to be built like a bulldozer. You want this huge chest and thick neck, just really built out in the shoulders, and the butt. You almost want like a tiny little butt. Like you don't want a big butt on your bull.
I mean, big as in like it could be round.
It could be
you
round.
Don't want it like big,
like big and like
big cheeks.
Yeah, you don't want big cheeks. You want
small cheeks.
You want small cheeks.
Small plump cheeks.
All right, easy there, buddy.
You want your bulls to look like they skipped leg day.
Yes, you want them to be skipping every leg day. You want it to be only bench, So, and the reason being is the same reason, the inverse reason as to why you want this in a cow. Testosterone shuts off growth in the back before the front. So a bull that's just massive up front, has plenty of testosterone and probably is going to be incredibly fertile. So shape-wise, that's something that you're looking for. Guts on bulls is an interesting thing because the gut actually doesn't necessarily translate to the fact that the females that he's going to throw out of his calves are going to have big guts. It's the depth of their chest that's going to translate to a big gut on a female, and you want a big gut in a grass-based system because they can consume more grass and have more grass working for them to put on weight. So don't get caught up with, a bull's got a giant gut because it might not actually translate to what you think it will.
Yeah, because like a bull doesn't need to have as big of a gut just because it does not supporting a calf. It's only supporting himself.
Yeah. So you want that. And the same thing with the bulls. Like, as we harped on this already with size, but you want them to be squat. You don't want a bull to be really tall and filled out. You want them to be like low to the ground. Like it would be, you need
like a bulldog.
Yeah, like a bulldog. Like it'd be really hard to knock them over. Is what you want. 4-wheel drive.
Also, so you want their front legs to be wider than their back legs. That's kind of goes along with the smaller in the back, bigger in the front. And with the cows, it's the opposite. You want their back feet. So if you look where the cow walks or a bull walks, you want to see his front steps. You want to have 2 steps wider and 2 steps narrower. And if a lot of times you can tell which is the back because the backs have been left, the last print that's been left.
Yep.
And then the cows, it's the opposite way.
Yep.
So,
other things to think about with bulls, you want to look at the testicles. Testicles on your bulls, they need to be even, and they need to be shaped like footballs. You don't want them really round, and you don't want them super tubular. You want them to be sort of in between, and you want the scrotum to be like a buckskin. Same thing with the udder on a cow. You want it to be hairless and
no teats on the
on the testicles. That is a thing.
You want them to be up on the belly, and then you want them to be uniform, because if there's teats and weird looking teats on the testicles, that's going to translate into weird udders for your calves.
Yep.
Or for your heifers, or your offspring.
And as far as the sheath on the bull, you want it to be tight and not too much hair on the sheath, because if it's too long or it's too hairy, you're gonna potentially physically you can get stuff caught on
Catch
it,
burns
and then it
stuff.
can cause all sorts of weird infection, and it's just bad. It's just bad news. You want it to be tight and compact.
So a bull's head should be half as wide as it is long.
Yeah.
So you want it to be like a 1 to 0.5.
Yeah. Or 2 to 1.
2 to 1.
Yeah. You don't want a long, narrow face on your bull. You want him to be wide, like you want him to look like that wide head. But you don't want a big head. You just want a wide head. Big head's also a problem.
And then with cows, you want the same thing. 1 to 2. You want it half as wide as it is long, but then plus 1 inch longer on the bottom, if that makes sense.
So the cow can have a slightly longer face than a bull, but you still don't want it to be too long. So yeah, it's like 2 to 1 for a bull, and then 2 to 1 plus an inch for the cow. So
you also want your bulls to be darker up in the front.
Yep.
The darker they are up by the head and the neck area, that signals a lot of testosterone. If they're kind of lighter up in the front, that's maybe not as much testosterone in that bull.
And the same tail thing applies to the bulls too. You want to make sure that you don't have high tail bones. And then what's another one? Is that basically it for?
Sorry.
So the more ear and tailbone dandruff, if it's real yellow, that's like a sign of I think it's high butter fat, I believe. It says on here.
Interesting.
And butter fat
is a good thing.
Is like translated as tenderness.
Yep.
So it's a more tender, pleasurable eating experience. Another way to tell tenderness as far as cattle breeds is if you think of like a cow's hock, that little space behind. Yeah, right there. That spot. If you can, if you can like see that, and it looks like it's super thin, like it's just skin on skin, that means there's a lot less tendons and cartilage in that animal, and so it's going to be a lot, more pleasurable eating experience.
Just less connective tissue and cartilage.
Obviously, you don't want to go up there and start grabbing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on the animal, but
we probably get kicked.
I think any animal would kick at that.
I feel like if you scratched 864 enough, you probably could do it.
She might like raise her leg to get away, but she wouldn't.
You're also looking. What was the thing with the ribs? You're also looking for.
Yeah. So with like a cow's ribs, the straighter they are up and down, the more that cow is going to be focused on feeding and taking care of herself. As if they're angled back towards their hock, that means that cow is going to do really well with taking care of her calf, if that makes sense.
If you can, that one you actually might be able to feel.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get kicked coming in the side of an animal for the most part, especially if they're docile.
Yeah, and if you can just see the last ribs, if they're pointing backwards, that she's going to do really good with her calf.
I remember after this.
If you think of like your stocky, good-looking, big gut, real square-built animals, they're going to do really good on grass for themselves, but they're not going to raise very good. They're not going to do much for their calf.
So angle to the ribs, not straight up and down.
Think of like 7108.
Yep. And I remember after we did this talk, I went over to 864 and started pushing on her ribs, trying to feel where they were. I'm pretty sure they're angled back a little bit.
Yeah.
She's got a deep She's got a deep chest, though.
Bulls, you want them.
You want them straight up and down.
Bulls with vertical ribs give daughters with angled ribs.
That was the gut thing, where the bull, you want depth. Mm-hmm. You want depth in that chest area. Yeah.
You don't have to worry as much about the gut.
Yeah.
Like a higher testosterone bull is gonna give higher estrogen. Daughters with higher estrogen levels.
Yeah.
So it's like
fertility is fertility.
If you're trying to work on big guts in your cows, don't worry about breeding the bull for the big gut, because that's a sign of more estrogen in the bull, and that's not going to translate to more estrogen in your cows.
Yeah.
It's going to translate to less.
It's just fertility. You're sort of using testosterone and estrogen as a fertility measurement almost, as well as like growth and whatever, but.
A bull that's wide up front will give a daughter that's wide in the back.
Yep. Man, I think those are the big. Yeah. I think those are the big highlights. I know it's a lot of information, but
I got pigeon-toed bull is more fertile.
A pigeon-toed bull.
Huh.
There you go.
I don't know. I just wrote it down from the talk.
But I think just to recap the big points that are to remember: size is huge. You want them maturing at 1,000 to 1,200 max. That 900 to 1,100 pound female mature weight is perfect. And bulls can be a little bit larger when they're hit maturity. They can get into that 12 to 1,400 pound range, but that's it. You don't want them getting any bigger. If they're smaller, perfect. After that, you're looking for shiny hides, slick hides if they're supposed to be slick.
Shed off early.
And shed off early. Yep. Mm-hmm. And then after that, then you're looking at shape, and just remember the solo cup. Mm-hmm. You want your females to be small in the front and big in the back, and you want your males to be big in the front and small in the back. Mm-hmm. And then just like the crushed in tailhead.
Yeah, smashed in
tailhead. You don't want tailheads that are popping out. If you can remember those things, you're going to be really far along.
Hook bone slant, that's a big one.
Yep, and the hook bone slant. Mm-hmm. Hook bones to the pin bones. You want it to be as steep of an angle as possible.
That's easier calving ease.
If people don't know what hook bones and pin bones are, just Google it, because it's hard to describe.
Well, think about it, guys. Like there's the one up in the front. I guess you don't really know the way cow's anatomy works. Just Google it.
Yeah, just Google it. It'll be easier. And then after that, like you can rewatch this and start to get into the nitty gritty, trying to really like select proper genetics or whatever. But those are really the big key elements. If you can hit all those, you're doing yourself some serious favors to be on the right path from the get go. And those animals are probably going to do really well on grass. So there it is.
Go look through your cow herd.
Yep. And
that's what we did.
That's what we did when we got back.
Whoa.
Started looking at high tail bones, started looking at angles, deep chests, big in the back, the angles, the slopes, all that. So it's fun. It's fun to once you start to learn about it and you start to go and look, you're like, that makes so much sense why she does so well.
I wouldn't be surprised if you go there to your favorite cows and you look at her like,
and she's just hitting all the marks.
Yeah.
And like sort of intuitively, if you're around it enough, you can start to be. You just know, like, yes, like she's what we need to be striving for. But then when you start to put these actual indicators, then all of a sudden you're like, yep. You sort of get this sense of like, yeah, she's good looking, but then you do this and you're like, yes, she's good looking because X, Y, Z, all the way down the line.
Yep.
So it's cool, super cool.
Now you guys know.
And
we finally got it out.
And this is all what we're learning. It's a learning process, and we've learned more as we've gone on in doing this, and so it's part of it.
It's
really
a good
interesting talk. If you ever have a chance to go see Steve Campbell, it's an interesting, and it's a thought-provoking seminar to say the very least.
He's put a lot of his energy and time into a lot of what he does.
Yep.
So,
well, with that, I wanted that to take as long as it needed to go. I know it was probably the longest one we've ever done, but I think it's going to provide a lot of value to a lot of people. So I just felt like we needed to flush that one out and not cut it short.
Completely. I think we covered everything too that we can really think of.
Yeah, this has been one that's been hanging on the list for a long time, and it's just been one of those where we wanted to do it right, and now we did it. So anyway,
Get into the
any questions?
I bet we got a bunch.
We probably won't have as long of a question section as normal, but
Because we gotta get to bed
we're
someday.
gonna do a few.
Just a comment. When I get going, I'm thinking of adding some bison mix to better genetics. Just thought that was.
I'd be careful.
Yeah.
Just because it's almost a different animal. Like
Yeah.
you just don't necessarily know what's gonna happen. You could end up getting. It's like when you take things that are good, two things that are good, and you put them together and it's bad. Like you get the worst. It amplifies the worst of both. You want to just be careful of that. That's something that you always need to be careful of even when you're crossing cattle. When you're crossing breeds, you got to be careful that you're not going to dilute the good parts of both breeds and end up with a more mediocre animal. You're almost better off choosing a prime grass genetic animal from a given breed than trying to cross sometimes. It's just,
and that's
it
not
just
like a blanket
depends.
statement, but that's like something to be aware
But it's just something to be aware of. Like, because I got a comment from somebody else the other day that said that there was this red Devon herd or something like that was like right, like local, like really good looking animals or whatever. And they were thinking of crossing it with a South Pole. It's like, yeah, it could work, but I would try to run with the Devon thing first, especially if it's a local animal, and then try to bring in some other genetics and messing around with it. It's like that kind of scenario. It's very case-by-case basis, but it's just something to be aware of. It's not always that you're going to get improvements by crossing. You can sometimes dilute things down.
Or you can get what's the opposite of improvements?
Unimproved? No. You can degrade it.
Degrade.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not like a word for it, I guess.
I mean, there is.
I think there is. I just think we're not thinking of
improvement. You can get it's detrimental.
Yeah, but like
degrading, detracting.
Anyways, it doesn't matter.
You detract.
Doesn't matter.
When you're choosing a bull, when do you think they are full size, age wise, and weight wise? And what is the max weight of a bull where grass finishing is concerned?
Wasn't it like a bull will grow up to like 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, somewhere in that 5.
I think it was 5 years.
5 years. They're pretty much peaking at about 5. They won't really get any larger. They might put on more weight as they get older. The funny thing is, like, we almost never see bulls that are anywhere near their mature size here because they all get sold.
But this year
we bought back one.
Yeah,
he's
a 4-year-old.
So he's still he won't really get much bigger, but he might put on more weight, and he is a dude compared to everybody else.
Big boy.
For some people, like we've posted some videos of him. He almost looks like a bison. Looks like a big old slope on a big old thick neck,
teeny butt,
just massive. Teeny butt.
Little teeny butt in comparison.
Look like a bodybuilder.
Yeah. That's like twice as wide as
only bench. Yeah. That's all he does.
And the traps.
He does not skip meals. That's for sure. Anyway, he's mature at about 1,400 pounds. And he's definitely like a bigger frame compared to some of Greg's animals. Yep.
Explain why line breeding, in quotations, inbreeding, works for bovines, but it's a bad thing in many other species.
I don't really know, to be honest.
We do it with sheep.
Yeah, we do it with sheep, but like I don't know enough about like the reproductive process of different species to understand why it's fine in cattle but not in other animals. I'm not entirely sure about that. I wasn't aware of it until we came here, but I can tell you from personal experience, Greg's animals look phenomenal, and he's been line breeding for years and years and years and years. So, I mean, it's evidence every day that it does work, or it can work. And I know that it's a very controversial thing. There's people on both sides of the aisle that are saying, like, what are you doing? There's no difference. It's basically inbreeding. You get better genetics if you go the other route, but then you've got living proof from Greg that it just is magnifying good, and you end up to a point, and then you end up with a fast track to where you want to be on a genetics basis because you're amplifying those traits from those animals that are succeeding.
Picking out the ones that you desire and the ones that are performing.
Yep.
In your direct management and location, and just exploding, expanding from that.
Yep. Don't have to worry about the buying in thing. Yeah. I'm a believer. Just personal experience. If I have personal experience that's otherwise, I'll let you guys know. But as of right now,
I believe it works.
I believe in it.
Would you keep up the salt in apple cider vinegar slurry mineral supplement?
We're hitting a crossroads with it currently because, like right now, we're dealing with some pink eye. It's just part of it. That time of year where the flies get bad and pink eye starts to fly around. And really, we were hoping that this was going to be something that would reduce our pink eye problems that we had last year. And it, at least so far, doesn't seem like it is. And that could be on our end by not implementing it correctly. It could also just be the animals aren't used to it. So
there could be.
There's too many confounding variables to really isolate what it is. But I don't know. I will say this though. We haven't seen, at least to date, we haven't seen any improvements using the apple cider vinegar.
Or a lot of the mineral stuff.
Yeah,
we were
a lot of the mineral
about.
stuff that we talked about earlier that we were trying and we're still trying. To date, we haven't seen any improvements. If anything, it's the same, or we've had more issues than we've had in the past, and that might be associated with the mineral, but it also could be other factors. So it's just really hard to parse out. But so far, nothing very positive as far as like, yes, we can see this being a huge difference and it's making a big difference with the herd. So
yeah, no conclusive pros.
Yeah, no conclusive pros. It's a good way to put it. So take that as you will.
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with brush overtaking the permanent fence lines? I've found that even if the fencer burns the vegetation until it's brown, once it rains, my voltage drops 4 kV or below anyways.
Yeah, it's just part of electric fence.
And we will go through, around the perimeters of farms, depending on the perimeter. Like if it's through the woods or something, we probably won't. But go around different farms and we'll cut off using either a brush blade on a weed eater or a chainsaw or loppers, and we'll clear a lot of the heavy brush. And that's we're talking about trees that big or whatever, or brush as opposed to grass. But as far as grass and forages and weeds and stuff, smaller plants, we don't really have.
You need to make sure if you're dropping that much kV on just green vegetation that you have a big enough charger, because if you have a charger that has enough joules, it'll be able to power through a lot of that voltage.
And you'll definitely drop some
it'll
during the rain,
for sure.
But it should still keep some, not a crazy amount.
Yeah, when it's drier, or in the wintertime where there's not as much vegetative load, if you're pushing 9 kV, it's pretty normal that in the summertime when it rains, you're down to the 4s, 5s. That's pretty normal. As long as you don't drop down to nothing. If you drop down to nothing, then maybe your charger's not big enough. But yeah, drops like that, I guess, are pretty normal.
Yeah, just part of
it.
Yep.
And generally, if it's 4 kV and up,
as long as you have 4,000.
As long as you have 4,000 volts or high 3s at the absolute minimum, you should feel pretty safe that your animals are going to stay in. That's a pretty good shock. Anything above that is just even more reinforcement. But when you start to get below that is when you need to start looking at finding a solution.
Yeah.
Hear that?
Yeah.
It's our mouse friend. I bet he's in one of these cabinets.
We'll have to find him later.
Find him in a bit. He's chewing on something.
Been trying to trap this sucker.
He's been trying to trap this mouse for how long?
A long time.
It's been
at least a month.
He tripped it. I don't know if it was him, but he tripped it the other day. Both of the traps. And I saw blood on the floor, but then I couldn't find a mouse. So I don't know if it was that mouse or if it was
He's a smart little
another
dude.
one.
Anyways.
Talking about when we were talking about lower weight calves.
Yeah.
But the smaller calves are going to finish at 1,000 pounds. Wouldn't they pay less for that reason?
They wouldn't necessarily.
At seb barn, you don't know.
You don't.
You just
you
assume
don't
it's
know.
a smaller
The
calf.
only thing you can do is just go off of the weight.
If it's in that weight range, they're gonna get that. They're gonna bring that price.
Yep.
Whether it's the genetics or not.
Yeah.
Especially if the cattle look like normal cattle.
Yep. Yep. You'll take a dock for them being red, probably, but that has
depending on your seb barn.
Yeah, it's true, but that has nothing to do with, that they're quote unquote smaller. Yeah. I mean, they're in that size class, so they're going to bring that price bracket. It's just how it works.
Do you know if Greg has any spots left for his fall grazing tour?
Yes.
Yes, I'm pretty sure there are.
Email Jan or Greg.
Yep.
Get on that list.
Get on that
It's
list.
filling up.
Go to greenpasturesfarm.net to get contact information.
Yeah.
But it's filling up. I think
It seems like every time we talk to
Jan, she's like it jumps like 10 or 20. Yeah, exactly. And I think they're going to cap it somewhere around 100. So
Better get
I
on
think
there.
it was in 50. It was like 50.
It's supposed to be
last time.
50 at first, but then
yeah,
it's probably going to be more.
It's
than
probably going to be. I think she's going to cap it around 100, and I think we're a little over halfway there. So make sure you get on that because it's going to be full at some point soon. And that was a couple days ago when we talked to her about that. So it could be close to being done at this point.
Are you saying Connor would be a better grass-fed bull and Ben would be a high-maintenance bull?
100%.
Yep.
And then
You
a
got
comment.
the good genetics.
And
Yeah.
then a comment was Ben would be steered.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't last long on the farm. Not even close. They'd steer my ass and throw me in the trailer and ship me off to town.
Feed him peanut butter all the time.
Feed me peanut butter on the way. No,
Oh man.
I don't belong here.
Oh, that's so funny.
Let's see. Comment, we might look into this.
Yeah.
Chrysanthemum flowers resolve pink eye, often taken as a tea. Wonder if that would help cattle or add it to pasture forage.
I don't know if it would do the same thing as it does with people. I know that like iodine helps. We know that being alkaline, like if their body is alkaline, it'll help.
We've got some things.
We've got some things in the works that we're trying out. Garlic is good at preventing flies. Yeah, we got a lot of things that we're in the works right now. But the problem with pink eye is it's really something that occurred, 3 weeks, a month prior. Maybe a stressor of some kind that like weakened their immune system and they started to get infected. So there's not a lot once you visually start seeing it. There's not a lot you can do immediately to make it go away.
It'll just take time to go away, and then hopefully you've adjusted your
management,
at that point.
or you just don't make a mistake that you had made prior. And Greg's philosophy, just so people are aware, like we don't doctor for pink eye at all. He's tried in the past when he was running stockers, he had to, and he said it was just so hit or miss. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. It would stress the animal out. A lot of the time he felt like it was just making them sicker as a result because they were getting stressed from being handled and putting patch in their eye and being poked and prodded and whatever, and versus just resolving it on its own. And there's a lot of different strains of pink eye, so
it's like 27 or something.
It's very difficult to just give them a vaccination or give them some medicine or whatever, and it just resolves. So it's one of those things that he's decided we just don't treat for it. And I would say the vast majority of cases, they'll either get a little bit of a cloudy eye or a little bit of a like white dot or a little blue tint to their eye that eventually sort of starts to recover. It's pretty rare that they lose the eye or go completely blind and never recover.
There's some that happen. But
it does happen, but it's no by no means the close to even half.
I can think of like 2 or 3 that have it as far as like cows.
Yep.
There's goggle eye and blind eye.
And both of them are still like high performing animals that have been in the herd for years and years and years. So it's just really aesthetic. It's the problem is when they get blind in both eyes. And the problem is when they're blind in both eyes and you're trying to do moves twice a day, they become a hazard to have them around because they just can't see. And usually we'll just bring them over to a secure place and let them work through it with food and water. And once they recover enough to get back with everybody else, we get them back to everybody else. So
we've got a couple that are gonna have to.
We're gonna have to probably do that when we get by the corral next.
And by blind, it's just temporary.
Yeah, it's not permanent. They just have obstructed vision. Yep.
Any difference on the number of flies using parasitic wasps on the manure?
We haven't noticed a difference. Not yet, at least. I don't know how long it takes to take into effect.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily sure it's even really a good solution for this kind of a system, just because we move so quickly and we're rarely in one spot for more than a couple hours at a time.
By the time we get back to that spot, it's 2 months down the road.
The fly cycle is completely broken already. So it probably did. I mean, I guess it probably does work for certain scenarios, but I mean, we haven't noticed a difference. Now, talk to me, whatever, in a couple weeks, maybe it'll be different, but at this point, I don't really notice a difference at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me know if somebody who's used them and had great success, because I'd be super interested to see like what that's all about.
Interested in crossing Corriente cattle and Red Angus. Would crossing a Corriente bull on Red Angus females be better to bring down the size, or would a Red Angus bull on Corriente cows be better?
Red Angus bull on a Corriente cows.
Yep.
You're going to be able to buy a Red Angus or Corriente cows a lot cheaper than you are the Red Angus cows. And then you buy a good quality Red Angus bull.
That's small.
A small frame, easy calving.
Yeah.
And bring that onto those Corriente cows.
Yeah.
Then their calves are going to be half Red Angus, half Corriente. Now you're looking at a calf that's worth more than its mother. So you've made money on your investment.
Yep. And you spent less money initially because you're only buying one expensive animal and a lot of cheaper animals versus the other way around.
Yeah, if you do the other way around, it's like putting not junk. I don't want to say junk.
No.
Corrientes are a good breed, but like the lower quality animal on the higher quality you're breeding the lower quality male to a higher quality female.
What would be a good example?
I know. I was trying to think of like an analogy.
It'd be like taking a Jeep and putting like a Hemi engine or like some like huge engine in the Jeep versus like taking a sports car with a giant engine and putting a roll bar on it and turning it into like a Jeep,
or like putting like a little dinky engine in the sports car.
Or putting a Jeep engine in a sports car or whatever.
Yeah.
But like that's not really what it is. It's more like you're trying to get an off-road vehicle, so you take a really nice vehicle and turn it into an off-road vehicle.
Put some suspension.
Or you take like a crappy off-road vehicle and then you soup it up so that like it becomes like a lot nicer than it was before. That's sort of what you want to do. You want to take you want to breed up.
You want to breed up. Always want to breed up.
Especially
breed down.
if you're doing that sort of a cross where you have one.
And when I say breed down, it's
just the market value of the animal.
Yeah,
is what you're talking about.
Because you really need to focus on the money aspect of it in order to make it work. So that's why we're saying breeding up. It's not that Corrientes are bad breeds.
We're fascinated with Corriente.
We're a big fan, and so, but like as far as like the market and the money side of it, you want to breed up.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where that it comes into play when you've got an animal like that where the market value is low and you have another animal where the market value is high. That's when the opportunity comes into play. When you have stuff that's relatively equal, it doesn't really matter which way you do it.
Yeah.
We got maybe a couple more.
We have one more.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
What are your thoughts on fly tags?
We
don't have too much experience with them. I've also seen of like sticky traps where like
I think Greg
around
used to use those.
water tanks where for like face flies. So like if a cow goes down to drink, the flies will jump off of her face and look for a place to land. They land on the sticky trap and they're stuck.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they
work or don't
Greg,
work.
we haven't talked too much about it with Greg.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to.
I don't know. I mean, if someone's got some experience, let us know. We're always interested in other ways of doing things and solutions and that kind of a deal. If we just had a ton more swallows,
an army of tree swallows, purple
barn
martins,
swallows,
barn swallows.
I feel like we could triple down on those houses and see what would happen.
I think you'd see an improvement.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be so cool to have like 1,000 birds just flying over the cows at all times, just eating the flies.
Yeah.
That's like a way to combat the solution at its head, as opposed to like.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're
fixing
you're fixing the
problem.
You're actually solving the problem as opposed to the symptom.
Fixing the symptom.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And you're creating a lot of habitat for birds too.
Yep.
And every species that you bring onto your farm supports 8 additional species.
It's like there's no way to know the full ecosystem impact of an individual species. It's impossible because ecosystems are so complicated, like mind-bogglingly complicated. So you just never know what that's actually affecting.
We're a big fan of diversity.
Yep. In all
Bring them in,
aspects.
bring them
Even if
in,
it-
feed them, and let them
As long as
stay.
it's not directly harming something that you're doing, even
Yeah.
if it might be a small inconvenience, it might even be worth doing. You know, because you just never know what or even if it doesn't seem like there's an obvious benefit.
There's
you know,
probably a benefit.
There's probably a
that
benefit that you just can't see. Yeah. I think that's it.
That was good.
That was a marathon of an episode.
That was. My mouth's dry.
I'm glad we got to it. I'm sure there's a million questions that are going to come via comment and whatnot. So just send them along, and we'll do our best to answer. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully we'll be here next week. Usually it's on Sundays instead of Mondays, but happens. So
Life happens.
Farm happens.
Yeah,
Farm happens.
Yeah. All right. See you everybody next
Peace
time.
out.